Steph Gaddin, welcome to Future Proof.
Thank you, Penny.
Now, your company is called Rocking Rose, and basically you help companies scale using technology. Would that describe your expertise?
Sure. So usually I get called into companies when they want to grow. They want to go from a smaller point to a larger point, and they're struggling with how to do that, or they've hit a point where they can't grow past something. Or, number of staff, they can't get past a certain number of sales, or whatever the case is, and they've identified that they think there's a technology barrier and they want to change that. What is interesting in the work I do is that I would actually split the work I do with the companies and the owners about 50-50 between technology and actually coaching around mindset, money, thinking, because half of the problem at least is usually the mindset of the owner or the founder of the company, where they have operated as a small business for a certain amount of time and they don't really know why they should change because things work a certain way and it's always worked for me up until now, so why should I change it? And we work around changing that because the tech is an enabler to the processes that you create. And one of my catch lines with my clients, and you'll probably see it a lot on a lot of social media platforms, is I always say people and processes first and tech second.
Which, I mean, is a beautiful segue into, the belief that I have that technology is there to amplify human potential, not replace it. And there was a brilliant quote by Kieran, who is one of the he's the futurist at MYOB. And he said, technology is working when you don't notice it.
I think that's beautiful. That's beautiful, and that is exactly right. If you don't notice your emails, you don't notice the stuff that's going on around you, then the tech is doing exactly what it should do. Exactly what it should. And we have to get to that point where it isn't a barrier to your work. Your work just happens naturally around that. Yes.
So I want to have a chat to you because one of the things I'm really passionate about is encouraging or shifting the mindset around women in the context of moving into careers in technology. Because I believe, that this idea of STEM careers or tech careers, it won't even be a thing in the next 5 to 10 years. It'll just be how we do business because we'll all be in it. That's the reality, okay? And that our mindset's not broad enough around that. So talk to me a little bit around what you've observed in terms of the trends around women moving into technology careers or lack thereof.
Absolutely. So my observation and my experience with a lot of women in tech is there's two main broad things. The first is that a lot of women in tech are not actually very technical. They end up in management roles because they have exceptional people skills. And they end up managing teams of techies rather than being a techie themselves, which is how they end up being a woman in tech. The second observation is that women who end up in tech, even the technical ones, don't always have the same path into that career or into that space as what men do. Men usually come into tech because they know they want to be a coder, or they know they want to be someone in the technical space, or they want to make cool shit or whatever, and they know that from a fairly young age. And they're pretty much encouraged to think that way. We educate girls and boys differently. We encourage them differently. Our language is different around encouraging them around what they do. And boys tend to go, I'm going to be that, and then they go be that. Whereas girls don't know what they want to do. They aren't sure if they have the skills. They'll go into an alternative career. They'll do something else. And a lot of women that I know, and myself personally, have ended up in tech via a really random career path where we didn't think we'd end up there, but we did. And we're pretty good at it because we have the thinking skills and the brains to handle what being in tech means.
So how do we encourage more women to technology? Because I work with a lot of large technology teams in some major corporates, and they're struggling to get women to actually come into tech type roles. So what's your perspective on how we could encourage more women to think of themselves as as tech people?
I think the first thing is to address the fact that there are so many more different career options than just coding. You can be in tech and do a multitude of different things and not actually touch a line of code. Okay, that's the first thing. So, if there are women who want to be in technology, who want to be in those exciting projects and can't code or don't think that they can code, my first bit of advice is don't worry, you don't have to. There are 100 other roles and jobs that you can do in a project team and be in tech without actually coding. Coding is not the be all and end all.
Well, the other reality is that coding will be done by AI in the future anyway.
Exactly. And we're talking, like, if we're thinking about code bots,
Yeah.
the actual coding and the heavy lifting and the grunt work of the stuff is going to be done by bots and AI anyway. The second thing I would say is that coding is not actually that hard to learn. It really, really isn't. And it's not so much about like learning a new language where you think you have to learn every single word and every single syllable and all the grammar and structure. Coding is, if you can figure out and learn how to code in one language, it's about the thinking. It's about thinking like a coder. And if you can do that, the world is your oyster, because picking up the other languages is just about learning the syntax and the rules. And there's this wonderful thing called Stack Overflow that all the developers in the world pretty much hang everything onto. And if you don't know how to do something in a particular code or a particular language, chances are someone solved that problem on Stack Overflow already, and you just Google it, you get in, you look up the answer. Everybody rates answers. So you've got, you ask a question and the answers get rated by a worldwide community of coders and developers and architects. And the best answer is always at the top of the page. So you don't have to know the nitty-gritty finer points of coding and how to code in any particular language. You learn to think like a coder.
So it's more the skill in learning it is about understanding how to think like a coder, because the application of that then is a point of differentiation in terms of going into. And it's interesting because I went and did the free coding course at General Assembly not so long ago, and there was a couple of observations I made. One, I was by far the oldest in the room, like by at least 10 years, and I was like, what's up with that? And two, whilst I don't want to be a coder, I was like, I want to understand this because I want to be able to think about it in the context of how I'm evolving my business. And it was really helpful for me because whilst I don't want to code, I realised that you can actually teach yourself quite easily how to code because basically it's all online. You can copy code and adapt it. That's what the best coders seem to do. But equally, it just gave me a better understanding of things in the context of my website. And when you see code in different applications, like it makes sense.
Absolutely.
But again, like I say, the interesting thing for me was I was the oldest person in the room, so more of us understanding how code works is quite powerful. What else?
I think that's interesting that you were into that and you were the oldest person in the room. I would encourage women of all ages, and particularly maybe our age, without giving it away, to actually do that, to go and try a coding course. If you want a career in tech, do a one-day boot camp. It doesn't matter what language it is. Don't worry. Don't get hung up on whether it's a popular language or it's a language that everyone's using or it's a skill in demand. Just go do something. And hang out in a room of people who are also there to learn the same skill, because that's also valuable.
Yeah, definitely.
That's massively valuable. And I would say women of all ages should do that. They should if they want to be in tech, go do a boot camp on coding and design thinking, and get yourself into that space and network with those people. Find those people to meet, because those kids in that coding course are probably going to be hiring people in another couple of years' time.
The other thing is, I think it broadens your connections, like you say, but also your thinking. Like you said, go and do something in design thinking. I mean, GA offer all these great free courses, all courses that are quite reasonably
Really
priced.
Yeah.
And I think, I teach at GA, but I think the most powerful thing about their programs is, one, it gets you to think differently. It puts you outside of your comfort zone. It puts you with different networks, which are all things that are helpful, that help you look at a broader perspective in the context of how you could apply these skills, which may not necessarily be in a traditional techie route. I mean, I've had people call me tech based because I do online programs. Like that could potentially be a form of it is. It could be just how you use technology in your business or in your workplace. And I think that's why we need to think a little bit broader.
We need to think much broader than the actual technical skills, because I will tell you this. The people that are very rare in the tech world and working on tech projects are the people who can straddle both worlds. Now they're called business analysts. Now they call them program managers. They've gone by lots of different names. But the thing is this: the people who can do that job exceptionally well are very, very rare. Okay, and it's not just an ability to translate; it's ability to be a people person with the what's called the users, to understand their needs and requirements and actually translate that into something usable, and then turn that into something technical that a developer or a coder can use to create the program, and then backwards vice versa. Because coders are very literal people. The ones that are exceptional at what they do, they are incredibly literal. If you go to them and say, I want a button on my website that does X, they will whip that around in 5 minutes and give you a button that does X. But they will not be the people who ask you, why do you want the button? Why must it do X? What's X actually going to accomplish in your life and your business? They'll just give you a button that does X.
Yeah, and that's why UX has gone through the user experience, yeah?
Exactly, and that's
has gone through the roof.
Gone through the roof. And UX is shooting through the roof as a massive place where I think women could be really, really good in the tech space. I think we have the skills, and I know I'm generalizing, but I think we have those empathy skills that enable us to understand a user journey and understand what a person is expecting the tech to be seamless and do, and take that and learn some design thinking, learn a little bit of coding so that you understand a bit of the background around how stuff gets built, and create experiences that then someone who is a technical coder can turn into a workable product for you.
Love it. So talk to me, before we close out, if you could make one change that would help us realise gender equality in the technology space, what would it be? So I know my one change the other week was, I would make men have babies, which I was like, hey, who knows, with technology it's possible. What?
That is a very interesting question.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you a little story background before I actually come up with the answer. And mostly it's because I'm giving myself time to think. But I remember very, very clearly when I woke up on the morning that Trump had won the election. Okay. And I sat up and I saw the news as I was drinking my coffee and reading the news. And I remember so vividly that moment, because that was the moment that I sat up, I looked at my husband across the breakfast table and I said to him, I'm sorry, darling, but we are only ever going to hire women from now on. Because I had decided in that moment that whatever it took, I was going to make sure that women were given equal opportunities in a world where they were being pushed down. So for me, if I could change one thing, I think it would be around making recruitment gender blind. And I think there's interesting ways to do that, and I think technology could be leveraged to do that, and I think there's interesting people who are trying to do something like that. I think if we can make recruitment gender blind, so there's no name on the CV, there's no indicating factors that tell you you're a mother or a father or a person or a woman or a man. If I could do that overnight, that's what I would do.
I like that. And I think, like you say, I already know of a couple of disruptive recruitment companies that are looking at playing in that space.
Yes.
Interesting. I love it. Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you for speaking with me. Cheers.